Welcome to Uncle's Channel. Thanks for watching today. Now, if you're a pretty constant viewer of the channel, it should come as no surprise. I'm a fan of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, things of the 80s, things that are retro. I mean, look at my little shrine I have behind me here. I mean, I love all things of that particular era. And it should come as no surprise, I'm also a pretty big fan of Stranger Things. I don't talk about it a lot on the channel here, just simply because it's a newer Netflix show and I don't know. I guess I could. I just simply haven't. But a snapshot review of the series. Season 1, Season 4 are the best, and Season 2 and 3 are both very good. But maybe that's a different video for a different day. All we really know is that the higher-ups of each of these two companies, or these two franchises, decided a crossover would be most beneficial for fans and creators alike. And so they're putting forth a comic book where the kids of Hawkins are going to be journeying to New York City to meet the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Now, who's the core villain of the series going to be here? Is it going to be more of the Dungeons and Dragons villains from like the Stranger Things universe? Or is it going to be more of a, Shredder and Krang and all them from more of the Turtles franchise? I mean, they haven't really said at this point anyway, but judging from the cover art, at least from issue number 1, I'm going to lean more toward they're going to focus on the Dungeons and Dragons villains. Because, I mean, look right here on the first image that they've released. You know, they have a little arcade machine here of the turtles playing against it. And of course, you have the little Demogorgon coming across the top here as well. And so I would think they're going to focus more on the Stranger Things villains, but who knows, maybe Crane and Shredder have somehow hacked into that upside down world and they're bringing all these villains into the New York City. Maybe that's the storyline they're going for. But just pause for a second on this particular image and look at like how wacky Raphael looks on the side of the arcade machine. I mean, that is just such a not good look for Raphael there. But outside the arcade machine, I love the art direction they're going for in this particular comic because they're definitely harkening back to the 80s style of Turtles for us readers. Because, I mean, look at Leonardo over here and look at Michelangelo. These look almost identical to what the action figures look like that we all collected as kids, and I absolutely adore that art style. I mean, they're really harkening back sort of to the time period like between the Mirage comics and the television show, and that's just such an interesting time period for the Turtles, and I'm just really excited they're actually going to focus on that particular era for this comic book. And according to the author of the comic book, all of this is done on purpose because they try to figure out what era the TMNT was in at the time period that Stranger Things was taking place at. And so they tried to match it up the best they could, and this is the style they came out with, and I just love it. But this isn't the only cover that they've released so far for the first issue. There's a lot of alternate covers. Now, this is the one that I plan to get when the issue drops on July 12th. But this isn't the only cover. Another one here shows the kids in New York City, and then the upside down world on the bottom part. Of course, you have the turtles down there experiencing the upside down world. Obviously, pretty interested to see what happens with all that. And then we have another one here of Leonardo fighting against Eleven. This is probably like when they first met, trying to hash things out before they team up, which they're obviously going to do. But this one here is a little bit on the odd side because obviously this is going back to the Mirage days where all the turtles had the same red bandana. But on the other cover, Leonardo had his blue bandana. So like, I'm not really sure like what direction, they're going with, or if that's explained in the story, or if they're just simply stylizing the covers just for more entertainment value. I'm not really sure, but regardless, we do have Splinter down the bottom, probably Will or Mike down there at the bottom as well. And the next cover here, we have one of the turtles watching over 11 journeying through the sewer. And I'm not really sure, which turtle is going to be. I would have said Raphael, but at the same time, if they all have the red bandana, we can't say for sure. And then the final cover here, we have Michelangelo for sure. He's got the nunchucks, got the orange bandana. Once again, I'm confused like which direction they're going with. My guess is Mike and Max there in the background. Mike got a little bit longer hair than usual. But then we have the alternate cover of that one, and it shows Mike using some sort of magical powers. Or, so like, is he getting powers here inside the comic books? I don't know. Obviously, this doesn't align with the continuity of Stranger Things. And so whatever they do inside this universe has no effect on the television show. And whatever happens with the Turtles has no effect on the Turtle universe either. This is its own little storyline that they're going for. But of all the covers, the first one is definitely my favorite. And I really hope that's the direction they're going to go for as far as art style throughout the entire comic book. Now, like I said earlier, we don't have a lot of plot details as far as like what's going to happen inside the comic book. However, the writer did give a little bit more detail as far as like the pacing goes and sort of how the emotional journey is going to take place. And it's sort of like in Stranger Things. You have the overall group of all the kids, and they sort of divide them up into different teams, and each team has their own adventure, and at the end they all sort of come together to fight against the evil monster at the end. But it's the individual journeys when they're in their small groups that we get more of the interactions, we get more of the emotional storytelling, more of the in-depth character analysis and all of that. And that's exactly how the comic book's going to be laid out as well. You're going to have teams such as like Raphael and Eleven are going to team up, Leonardo and I think Will is going to team up, it said. Donatello and Max is going to be teaming up. And so like they're already sort of dividing the smaller teams up so you can get that individual character development and sort of how they interact with each other, and probably get a little bit more of a deeper story before you bring them all together to fight against, whichever evil monster you're going to fight against. And I actually like they're going to sort of follow the same hit pattern or, note for note as like a Stranger Things season. And I think it'll overall work pretty well, especially since you're dealing with like so many characters here. I mean, you got the 4 turtles, all the Stranger Things kids. That's a heck of a lot of characters in this book, and so I think the smaller teams is definitely going to be beneficial. Now, there's one more thing I do want to talk about this crossover, and this is actually not the first time we've seen this crossover event, because like a year or two ago, they actually put out action figures, and I think they're still putting them out as we speak, where they actually crossed over the Ninja Turtles and the Stranger Things characters, but the storyline behind that and everything about that does not line up with this particular comic book. I don't think it's going to be related in any form or fashion, because according to the back of the toys, I never bought any of them. It said the company TCRI, who's responsible for all the mutagen, is now like conducting experiments out in Hawkins, Indiana, with the upside down world and all of that, and the turtles go out there to try to stop TCRI and all the little operations that are happening and team up with the Stranger Things team out there. And so that storyline is completely different than what we know about the storyline in the comic book so far, because it all takes place in Manhattan. Didn't mention anything about the mutagen or anything about that, and so I think these storylines are completely separate. I just find it really odd that they've done this crossover before for the action figures, and they're just going to disregard that entire story and go in their own individual direction. Probably a better direction if we're being honest about it, because the action figures were probably just simply created to basically cash in on the retro style of Stranger Things and Ninja Turtles, and I'm sure it did its job very well on that, where this is definitely going to be focused more on the story. But overall, I'm actually pretty excited to pick up the comic book. I'll probably do a little, review here on the channel, show some screenshots from the comic book. If it's a good comic, I'll probably pick up the future issues as well. And if it's not a good comic, I'll probably just stop after the first couple and go from there. But I really hope it's a good comic book. But what do you all think? Are you planning on picking up on July 12th? Or are you going to wait for the graphic novel to sort of compile them all together? Or you just think it's a horrible idea and you want nothing to do with the crossover event? Let me know in the comments down below. As always, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Check out my other videos listed up above, and go out there, find a great game to play. Just simply have a great rest of the day.